In the heart of Rome, where the ancient stones have whispered secrets for centuries, the bells of St. Peter's Basilica rang with a tone not heard in generations. The smoke had turned white, but what followed was not merely the rise of a new pope. It was the beginning of a quiet but thunderous revolution. Barely a month ago, the world watched in awe as Cardinal Robert Prevost, an unexpected name from across the ocean, emerged from behind the red curtains. And in that moment, history was rewritten. They called him Pope Leo XIV, the first US-born pontiff in the Church's 2,000-year history. But none could have foreseen what would unfold in the days that followed. His election wasn't just a transition of power. It was, as many now whisper, a divine intervention, shifting the balance of forces not only within the Vatican, but within the entire mystical fabric of the Catholic world. As the sun rose over Vatican City, many expected a papacy that would carefully follow the gentle footsteps of his predecessor, Pope Francis. But instead, what they witnessed was a methodical, almost surgical transformation of the very heart of the Church. Behind the closed doors of the Apostolic Palace, changes were unfolding rapidly, changes that left some cardinals silent and stunned, disbelief while others whispered among the ancient marble halls. Has Providence sent us the Pope of Restoration? Within days, Pope Leo XIV demonstrated not only his humility, but a hidden strength that caught even seasoned Vatican watchers off guard. With no dramatic speeches or fiery decrees, he began reshaping the very soul of the Church with quiet, but forceful precision. He began by confronting the fires of war. In a deeply guarded phone call that few were even aware took place, Pope Leo XIV directly spoke with Russian President Vladimir Putin, an unprecedented move so early in his reign. The content of that conversation, though partly veiled in secrecy, quickly leaked through the Vatican corridors. He pleaded not with politics, but with the language of Christ himself, peace, mercy, and the sanctity of human life. And in that moment, the Vatican was no longer a silent observer of the world's darkest conflicts. It had re-entered the battlefield of geopolitics under the banner of peace. But this was only the beginning. The world saw a second sign, subtle but profound. During his first Sunday blessing, as tens of thousands gathered beneath the towering dome of St. Peter's, Pope Leo XIV did something no one anticipated. He chanted the ancient Regina Caeli prayer, not with the rehearsed voice of a ceremonial leader, but with the haunting beauty of Gregorian chant, a sound that carried across the piazza like a voice from the early Church itself. Instantly, a revival of ancient Catholic tradition surged across the globe. Millions of Catholics, especially the youth, flocked online to learn the forgotten chants of their ancestors. It was as though the Spirit was awakening the sleeping bones of the early Church. The ripples of his papacy reached even further. In the midst of the holy year of 2025, declared a Jubilee of Hope, Pope Leo XIV presided over the Jubilee of Families, standing firmly on the doctrine that the family remains the cradle of humanity's salvation. Yet behind the gentle words was a deeper message, a calling for families to reclaim their foundation in Christ amidst a world spiraling into moral chaos. His message was not only for the faithful, but for all of mankind. If the family falls, humanity itself will fall. But if the family clings to Christ, the world may yet be saved. And then came perhaps one of his most prophetic warnings, one that echoed like thunder in the halls of both Silicon Valley and the Vatican Library: artificial intelligence. While world leaders raced to worship the gods of technology, Pope Leo XIV stood firm. Man must not play God, he declared, warning that unchecked AI development could soon violate the divine order itself. The Vatican, under his leadership, has quietly begun drafting moral frameworks to protect human dignity in the age of machines, a move which many in the tech world see as a direct challenge to their unbridled ambitions. But while the world marveled at the new pontiff, the shadows behind the sacred walls stirred, for not everyone welcomed these changes. Whispers emerged of internal factions, forces loyal to the previous ways, watching Pope Leo XIV with cautious eyes. Some cardinals fear his rapid reforms threaten the fragile balance built by Pope Francis. Others quietly rally behind him, believing that at long last, the Church is returning to its true apostolic roots. The battle between old and new is unfolding quietly in the background, a spiritual chessboard hidden from the public eye. Meanwhile, in the midst of these transformations, Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, once thought to be a front-runner for the papacy himself, has stood as both witness and protector of Pope Francis's legacy. Appointed as titular of Albano, Cardinal Tagle has made it clear: there is no turning back from the mission to serve the poor. Though his words seem calm, many within the Vatican whisper of deeper tensions beneath the surface. Will Tagle and Leo XIV walk in harmony? Or will destiny force them onto opposing sides of an invisible battlefield? And just as the world tried to absorb these rapid changes, another shock shook the Eternal City. Deep beneath the Lateran Basilica, beneath layers of time and stone, archaeologists uncovered a forgotten ancient papal palace, a silent monument to the Church's forgotten past. A sign, some say, that the foundations of the Church are being unearthed both spiritually and literally. Was this mere coincidence? Or was heaven revealing that the Church must confront its ancient identity once more? And as the Jubilee year 2025 unfolds under the theme Pilgrims of Hope, with millions preparing for pilgrimage and reconciliation, Pope Leo XIV now stands at a crossroads few pontiffs have faced so quickly. He has already made decisions that would take many years under previous popes. His method is calm, but his pace is unsettling. The Vatican has not seen a storm like this in decades, and so today, we stand at the edge of mystery. What drove Pope Leo XIV to act with such urgency? What secrets lie beneath the surface of these seemingly simple reforms? And why are some quietly calling him not just a pope, but a chosen vessel for these final times? Because Pope Leo XIV has already changed 10 things, and what you're about to hear will absolutely shock you. And so, as the eyes of the world fix themselves upon the marble columns of the Vatican, behind closed doors, the once unthinkable is unfolding. The sacred order established for generations is being rewritten, not in defiance, but in divine urgency. For Pope Leo XIV has already enacted changes that many believe are not merely policy adjustments, but prophetic markers of something far greater stirring within the Church itself. The first of these changes came with a silence that roared across the global stage, his immediate restraint from appointing new cardinals. Where many anticipated a rapid filling of key offices, Pope Leo XIV instead allowed the College of Cardinals to remain exactly as it stood under Pope Francis, frozen, as if heaven itself demanded a pause. Some Vatican insiders whispered that this was no political delay, but rather a spiritual waiting, as if he awaited divine instruction for whom should truly be elevated to shepherd the flock in these dangerous times. Next, he moved swiftly and unexpectedly on matters of church governance. In one of his first acts, he ordered a secret audit of the Vatican Bank and its global financial ties. For decades, the Holy See's finances have been a source of both scandal and secrecy. But now, for the first time, an internal investigation, led not by Vatican insiders, but by trusted auditors from outside Rome, is quietly underway. The question they are tasked to answer is chilling. Has the Church's wealth become entangled with powers that oppose the gospel? And if so, will Pope Leo XIV dare to confront them? The sword is already hovering above powerful figures, some say, but this was only the beginning. In a move that startled even longtime theologians, Pope Leo XIV has already begun issuing private instructions to revisit the liturgical reforms of the past 50 years. He has not abolished Vatican II, as some feared, but neither has he allowed its most controversial liturgical experiments to continue unchecked. Behind the scenes, Leo XIV is quietly reopening the ancient debate over the traditional Latin Mass. Sources deep within the Congregation for Divine Worship report that certain bishops are being consulted, some in secret, about gradually reintroducing wider access to the Tridentine Rite. It is not restoration out of nostalgia, but restoration out of warning. As evil rises in the world, many believe that the ancient forms carry spiritual power desperately needed for the battles ahead. and then came a fourth shock. Without warning, the Holy Office, under Pope Leo's direct guidance, has begun drafting new doctrinal clarifications on human identity, marriage, and family. These documents, still under seal, are rumored to contain sharp lines that many liberal theologians hoped would never be drawn again. "The law of God is not subject to the culture of man," one senior archbishop reportedly wrote in an early draft. These clarifications may reignite fierce debates in the global church, but Leo XIII appears unmoved by the political consequences. He fears not the anger of man, but the judgment of Christ. But what came next turned attention not just toward policy, but toward something more spiritual, more ominous. In a private letter to senior exorcists, leaked only weeks ago, Pope Leo XIV formally acknowledged an increase in demonic activity worldwide. This acknowledgement, rare from any modern pope, is not simply an abstract theological statement. It is a call to arms for the spiritual warriors of the Church. Reports are circulating that Leo XIV has personally commissioned a small group of trusted bishops and exorcists to re-establish an ancient Vatican commission on spiritual warfare, once disbanded in the modern era, for as the world races toward technological dominance, so too does the kingdom of darkness move to claim souls unguarded. The sixth change was equally unsettling. At the heart of the Vatican's diplomatic corps, Pope Leo XIV has quietly reassigned key envoys to embattled regions of the world, particularly the Middle East, Eastern Europe, and Asia. While the world focuses on political alliances, Leo XIV sees something far deeper: spiritual fault lines, where the next great trials of faith may erupt. His envoys are not merely ambassadors. They are being trained to act as watchmen, observing not only governments but the condition of the persecuted church in lands where martyrdom still bleeds beneath the surface. And then, astonishingly, in a move unseen in generations, Pope Leo XIV ordered a full inventory of the church's ancient relics and hidden archives. For centuries, rumors have swirled that the Vatican holds artifacts of unspeakable significance: fragments of the true cross, scrolls from the earliest apostles, and prophecies sealed long before even Fatima. Now, teams under papal seal are examining these treasures with rumors that Pope Leo himself has personally reviewed certain apocalyptic manuscripts. Is heaven preparing to unveil ancient knowledge for these final days? Or is Leo XIV guarding the world from truths too terrible to reveal? But the waves did not stop there. The eighth change sent chills even into secular governments. Pope Leo XIV's unprecedented warning about artificial intelligence and the rise of false messiahs. In a strongly worded statement, he declared that humanity now stands at a precipice where machines may soon imitate not only human speech, but spiritual authority itself. There will arise voices not from God, but from algorithms, he warned, and many shall be deceived. Vatican. Researchers are now collaborating with trusted scientists and theologians to build defenses against what some are calling the coming digital Antichrist. And as these reforms shook the visible structures of the Church, a ninth change was already quietly taking root within the hearts of the faithful: the resurrection of pilgrimages, confession, and personal penance. Pope Leo XIII has repeatedly exhorted the faithful not to seek comfort, but conversion. Confessionals, long abandoned in some Western nations, are once again filling. Holy sites, Fatima, Lourdes, and Jerusalem, are swelling with pilgrims desperate to reconnect with the sacred. The time for lukewarm faith has ended, Leo XIV proclaimed. Return to the narrow path while mercy remains open. And then, finally, perhaps the most mysterious of all, a 10th change, one not fully understood, but deeply sensed by those within: the spiritual heart of the Church. For since his election, many close to Pope Leo XIV report that he has spent long hours alone in the Vatican gardens at night, beneath the stars, in deep, silent prayer. Some have seen him kneeling barefoot under the olive trees where previous popes dared not tread after dark. They say he prays for something, or perhaps against something. One trusted Monsignor was overheard whispering, "He knows what is coming. He has seen it, and he is preparing the Church for what few can bear to imagine." And so, my brothers and sisters in Christ, we stand not at the beginning of a simple new papacy, but perhaps at the unfolding of a drama written long before time itself. Pope Leo XIV has already changed these 10 things. And yet, what may come next may shake the heavens. As these 10 shocking changes ripple across every chamber of the Vatican, what was once merely a papal transition has become something far greater. A confrontation between unseen forces, ancient prophecies, and the fragile hope of a billion souls watching in awe and trembling. But behind the marble walls, as incense fills the air and the statues of saints seem to watch in solemn silence, another drama is quietly unfolding, one almost no one dares to speak of publicly. For not all within the sacred college rejoice at what Pope Leo XIV has set into motion. There are whispers, barely audible, behind closed wooden doors and beneath vaulted ceilings where the echoes of centuries still linger. Certain high-ranking prelates, whose names remain unspoken but whose power is undeniable, now gather in secret. They murmur of caution, of disruption, of preserving the balance. But others call it for what it truly is: resistance. These cardinals, many, elevated during Pope Francis's long reign, had long envisioned a church more aligned with modernity, more flexible to the shifting sands of culture, more willing to bend where doctrine once stood unyielding. And now, before their very eyes, a pontiff has arisen who seeks not to modernize the church further, but to purify it. Inside the apostolic palace, beneath candle-lit corridors, meetings are held late into the night. Documents circulate quietly, not decrees but analyses, strategies, cautious alliances. The phrase some have begun to whisper behind locked doors is chilling. We may need to contain him. Yet while human hands attempt to steer earthly power, something greater stirs, for even they sense that this is no ordinary papacy. Strange reports have begun to surface. Monks and nuns in remote monasteries speak of visions. In the hills outside, Assisi, one elderly sister claimed she saw the image of St. Michael appear during her night prayers, his sword drawn, speaking words she dares not repeat. In South America, a young seminarian collapsed during adoration, weeping uncontrollably, crying out, "The time of cleansing has begun. The bride must prepare for her bridegroom." And then, the rumors began regarding the sealed prophecies. Ancient scrolls hidden deep within the Vatican secret archives, unread by any pontiff for centuries. These texts, said to predate even the Fatima revelations, speak of a coming trial where Rome itself would become both battlefield and sanctuary. And so, war not of armies, but of principalities and powers. Has Pope Leo XIV read these forbidden words? Has he seen the contents of the long-whispered Letter of the Last Shepherd, said to contain heaven's final warning for the Church? No one dares ask, but those closest to him notice the signs: his sleepless nights, his prolonged hours. Before the Blessed Sacrament, his whispered prayers as he walks alone beneath the dome of St. Peter's in the dead of night. Then, another twist: the mysterious visitor. Eyewitnesses confirmed that, late one evening, an elderly priest from Eastern Europe, identity unknown, not listed on any official delegation, was granted a private audience with the Pope. The man stayed for nearly 6 hours. No documents were signed, no photos taken, but those stationed nearby claimed they heard faint weeping coming from within the papal apartments. The next morning, Pope Leo XIV's face appeared gaunt, his expression heavier, as though carrying the weight of a burden newly received. What message did the old priest bring? Was it a prophecy, a warning, or a revelation too grave for even the world to know? And while the Vatican remains bathed in its majestic beauty, outside its walls, the spiritual warfare intensifies. Across the globe, the rise of moral chaos, the distortion of truth, and the persecution of the faithful escalate in tandem. Yet strangely, an awakening is also occurring. Eucharistic adoration is increasing. Marian apparitions are being reported in quiet corners of the world. The confessional lines grow longer. It is as if heaven is summoning the church to ready itself for something that approaches, something foretold, something long feared, but now drawing near. Even Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagli, once considered by many the natural successor to Francis, watches with both loyalty and concern. He continues to defend Pope Francis's vision for the poor and marginalized, yet within his heart, he surely feels the tremors beneath the Church's foundations. Two visions, one church, and a question neither man yet speaks aloud. Who will guide the bride through the fire to come? And so, the Catholic world holds its breath. The marble pillars remain. The incense still rises. The bells still ring. But beneath the surface, the storm gathers strength. For if the whispers are true, Pope Leo XIV may not simply be reforming the Church. He may be preparing it for a moment far more apocalyptic than the world yet dares to understand. What is this moment? What awaits the Church in the months ahead? And has the final battle between the light and the shadows already begun, hidden beneath the golden dome of St. Peter's itself?